Right, welcome. Give folks a second as they come in from the waiting room. All right, we can get started now. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Stephanie Rowe, Executive Director at the National Council on Public History, and I want to welcome you all to our 2026 members meeting. I wish that instead of being on Zoom today, we were all gathering together in person at a conference. But I hope to see many of you in Providence this September when we meet jointly with our friends at the American Association for State and Local History. And then again, next spring when we meet in St. Louis, Missouri on our regular schedule. Before turning things over to the official program, I wanted to share the agenda for today's meeting, as well as a few housekeeping notes. So we're going to start with a report from our outgoing president, Saab, Denise Meringolo. Then we'll hear from our treasurer, Sharon Leon, editor of the Public Historian, Sarah Case, and then I will give a report from the office, and we'll have lots of time at the end for questions. This meeting is being recorded, and we'll send you a link to the recording next week. Closed captions have been enabled. Click the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you don't see them automatically. And please feel free to use the chat area throughout the meeting to share where you're joining us from and to pop in your questions for our presenters as you have them. And just a reminder that we're in Zoom meeting mode, so please keep yourself muted unless you would like to ask a question. And it is now my pleasure to turn things over to Denise Meringolo, NCPH president, for another 58 minutes to share her report with us before then handing the reins over to Nicole Moore, incoming president. Denise?
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for attending this members meeting online so that we can catch up on what our beloved community has been doing. First of all, I just want to give my deepest thanks and respect to our departing board members. Christine Navarro-McElhaney is departing the board at the end of her term as immediate past president, and 3 board members are rolling off. That is Kirsten Delegard, Charlene Fletcher, and Charles Johnson. I also want to give a very, very warm welcome and a big giant hug to our new board members. We've got our new Vice President, President-elect Priya Chaya, a new Treasurer-elect who's Amy Wilson, and 3 fantastic new board members, Adrian Burke, Samuel Redman, and Kristen Scorsoni. Although we are not meeting on our normal conference schedule, your board of directors has remained extremely active. So I just wanted to let you know that working under the guidance of our advocacy committee, we've continued to make sure to make a stand for public history and to make a case for supporting diverse and inclusive histories in public spaces. We've also made advocacy alerts and guidance available to our members so they can advocate on the local level as well as we do so on the national level. This spring, we did hold our regular spring board meeting as well as our committee interest meeting. We elected a new at-large member of the executive committee of your board, and we've approved new guidelines for accessibility. We've also selected the meeting location for our spring 2028 meeting, which will be in Pittsburgh. I think Sharon Leon is our unofficial host. And this summer, we do expect to approve some new governance policies, which have been created just to provide documentation for some administrative practices that we've always done, but we needed documentation for, including, for example, document retention. I also want to tell you that because we are not meeting on our regular spring meeting schedule, I will be holding something of a presidential roundtable at an upcoming mini-con, which is called Realizing the Power of History, Past, Present, and Future Strategies. That is taking place in Washington, D.C. at the Corcoran, which is now part of George Washington University, on May 27th, 2026. So come on down and join me. The presidential panel will be recorded for posterity and some version of it will be published in the Public Historian. Since it's my last 55 minutes of my presidency, I just thought I would take an opportunity to just make a few broader comments. So for the next 2 years, I will be serving on this board as its immediate past president. And I see in that capacity, my primary role is to provide support and backup and love to our incoming president, Nicole Moore, and our vice president, Priya Chaya. I have been so grateful to have the support and friendship and reality checks of our immediate past president, Christine Navarro-McElhaney, and I'm hoping that I can provide the same to Nicole and to Priya. When I accepted my role, first as vice president and then as president of the National Council of Public History in 2022, I absolutely understood that I was agreeing to work with and for our staff, our board, our committees, and our members, and it has been a tremendous honor to do so. I'm so grateful to have been elected. I did not know, however, none of us could have known that I would be standing in this role during a time of what feels like unprecedented upheaval in our profession. I was in a meeting recently with a group of very smart people who think about and write about and work for the National Park Service. And one of our colleagues, Angie Serna, observed that while it's absolutely true that the Park Service is always buffeted around by politics, this particular period has felt uniquely difficult because of the speed of change and because of the lack of vision that's driving that change. And that felt very true. So while Park Service employees and other federal workers have undoubtedly taken the hit of recent events most directly, those of us in the broad field of public history have been hit by the shockwaves. And they certainly tipped us over, they knocked us back, they pushed us into uncertainty. And one of the impacts of that upheaval has been some contraction in our membership numbers. So not only are folks becoming unemployed or underemployed or moving out of the profession, I'm seeing that the number and size of graduate programs is also being impacted as colleges and universities are facing sharply reduced budgets. This could be a time of pessimism, but I'm not really a pessimist by nature. And I think that we are kind of standing in the gap and we have an opportunity to really think about the future of our profession in new and creative ways. So right now, I actually feel both determination and hope. National Council on Public History has refused to soften its language or mask its commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We've provided space, resources, and guidance to advocate for our profession, and we've remained financially solvent, which is really to the credit of our executive director and our treasurer. I don't take credit for any of this, but I'm just really proud to have been a small part of supporting these efforts to make sure that we remain strong and determined into the future. So now that we're looking ahead, we have a much clearer understanding of the environment that we're working in. We can see that it's going to be absolutely critical, not only to keep up the good fight and be willing to get into a little good trouble, but also to give our full attention, our volunteer time, and our unwavering material and practical support to President Nicole Moore and Vice President Priya Chaya. This is the first time in the history of the National Council of Public History that our two key leaders are women of color. And it's also very exciting that both of our leaders are practitioners who work in the field rather than in academia. The last time this happened, we believe, was in 2012. So now more than ever, we define ourselves as a working board and as an active membership. We owe that to our staff, we owe it to our profession, and we owe it to Nicole and Priya. They both have the energy, the strength, the intelligence, and the fire to get us through whatever curveballs come next. But I want them to know that they are not standing in that space by themselves. So thank you so much for joining us here today. You are here and we are here because we believe in the mission of the National Council on Public History, and I'm really grateful to have served you during this incredibly interesting time. Thank you so much. I will now turn things over to our beloved treasurer, Sharon Leon.
Thanks, Denise. I appreciate that. We have for you today a, let's see, let's go in the other direction. There we go. We have for you today a review of our 2025 finances, and we've put them, as always, in context with the 2024 numbers. So you can see over the course of 2 years what our budget looked like and what our actual spending and expenses looked like. As Denise mentioned, we're absolutely in a period of flux with membership for so many reasons. And you can see that play out in our 2025 numbers where we undershot just slightly. We undershot our budgeted numbers for membership revenue. We think that in 2026, we will continue to be in flux. We've made allowances in our planning for those numbers to change a little bit. But you will see, and you'll get to hear from Sarah after me about the wonderful success that the Public Historian Journal has continued to be over the last 5, 6, 7 years. You can see that we have raised our expectations in our budgeting for the income from the journal, and time and again, the journal surpasses our expectations, and that was also true here in 2025. Just as membership numbers are in flux, so is our understanding and access to the ability of members and folks in the field to participate in and come to our various events. And so while you will see that our income is slightly down from the Montreal meeting, from our expectations, we had a really robust return in a number of virtual programming and events and mini-cons. And so we're continuing to figure out what the right approach to those events are, how regional events might work. The mini-con that is happening in a couple of weeks is another one of these really important experiments in bringing people together outside of the annual meeting. Other numbers in the income column that look like they might be a little bit off. You might ask why? Why so much money from the O'Brien lecture? And you will see that there was a zero income from the O'Brien lecture in 2024. And that is just a glitch of accounting and payments from Indiana University that rolled both of the incomes from 2024 and 2025 into the 25 budget year. We always make a draw on our endowment funds that is calculated to be a prescribed percentage of the 12-quarter rolling average from the endowment. And in 2025, we drew slightly less than we budgeted for, $54,000. You will see also that our income from our grants and contracts is much higher than we anticipated in 2025. That's due to the flux that Denise pointed to in our relationship with the Park Service and outside collaborative projects. We tried as much as possible to front load and facilitate that work while we could. That results for us in an income of fairly robust project management fees, which help keep us afloat. 2026 will not be another year of adventure as we figure out exactly what the balance of the Park Service relationship income might turn out to be. It's a little bit hard to predict. You'll also see that the board and the development committee continue to do amazing work in fundraising for the annual fund. In 2025, we brought in just over $50,000 in contributions to the annual fund. Those are operating dollars that get used on the ground by the organization right away, and we need them. And so congratulations to the board and the development committee in doing that work. We also have from previous years some encumbered surplus that we have been saving to help facilitate our transition in staffing costs and things like that. And again, we could have drawn a significant amount of that money, but would have drawn far less in 2025. So that's a little bit of a safety cushion as we move forward. The expenses obviously also are a little bit in flux because as things change with meetings, while our income from the Montreal meeting was not as high as we anticipated, also our expenses were much lower than we anticipated. And for a variety of reasons, our administrative costs were down a little bit. I don't think anyone at this time last year could have told us that we would have achieved an $84,000 surplus in 2025. But we're very grateful for that money because it serves as a bulwark against future disruption and turbulence, which is exactly what we're looking at in 2026. So the board and the finance committee and the staff have planned very carefully about how to store that money away to help us as we navigate the possible changes in 2026 and going forward. So the other piece of information we have for you today, just sort of by way of general review, is our statement of financial position, which if we can advance to the next slide, thank you. You can see that we are in good health in our assets and our liabilities. This snapshot of our account holdings it's actually from the 15th, 16th day of January, but reports on the close of 2025, tells us that we have good cash flow in our checking account, that our endowment savings account, which is where we hold some of our encumbered surpluses and where donations come in before they're invested in the endowment, has a healthy margin in it. We have resources available to do digital work if we need to do that. And the Park Service account, which is money that is actually not for us, continues to have a good balance in it as money comes in from the Park Service agreements and then goes out to practitioners in the field. And in 2025, that flow of cash through NCPH topped $670,000 of work that was performed by public historians in the world, facilitated by NCPH. Also, you see that because the stock market is the stock market and not the rest of the economy, our endowment's doing great. It is well invested. It's got good return. We continue to have that safety net of the endowment, which is earning exactly what we would expect it to and a little bit more, which facilitates so much of the work that we get to do for the membership in the field. If we look at the liabilities, you'll see nothing surprising here. We always close out the end of the year with a little bit of accrued payroll liability because people get paid after they do the work. And so that $20,000 is our close over December into January for staff salaries. So what we can say about the financial health of the organization in 2025, against all odds in the world, it continues to be strong. And as Denise suggests, this is due to the very hard work and careful management of the staff, of Stephanie in particular, the oversight and guidance of the finance committee, who meets regularly and keeps very close eye on exactly what our choices are on investments and budgeting decisions. And though we don't know what the future holds for any of us in the public history field, we do know that the organization is on strong and stable financial ground. And with that, I want to hear about the journal from Sarah.
Hi, hello from actually not so sunny Southern California, where we're already getting our coastal fog. But we just give me a little overview of how things are going with the journal. We continue, despite all the current complications. We continue to receive interesting and diverse submissions. We're receiving more international submissions. We are receiving a good mix of reports from the fields and research articles, and we continue to have enough enough of a pipeline that we're able to be fairly selective. Continuing our acceptance rate is somewhere like 20-25% of the pieces we receive. We have a special issue coming out this month, Public History as Labor, and it's really about the work of public historians. That will be online, I think, by next week. That's our May issue. We're working on a virtual special issue, collecting the plenaries and pieces based on the NCPH NPS joint plenaries on the 250th anniversary. That will be coming out on the CPress website, collected with an introduction that will appear around the July 4th holiday to sort of highlight that theme. We're also working on a review section on 250th themed material that will be hopefully coming out in November on special exhibitions, particularly on having to do with the 250th. We're also working on a special issue with the Association of African American Museums on public history as resistance, which will be coming out in 2028 for their 50th anniversary. We're working on first drafts right now, and that is something, again, that we have sort of a long planning time for. We are continuing to have a good working relationship with UC Press and continue to, and as Sharon said, bring in a little extra income that from which we are very grateful to continue to be able to have. And that's really all. I'm really open to questions. I'm just sort of giving a general overview of how things are going, which on the whole, despite all the problems that might be facing us, are going fine. We're still managing to receive, as I said, a broad array of kinds of submissions. We're continuing to have reviews of various different kinds of media. We're continuing to sort of try and experiment with what we review. And we continue our push in the last 5-6 years to be more international in our scope as well.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And just a reminder, as folks have questions, you can pop them into the chat on your Zoom. And then in a few minutes, when I am done with my report, if anyone wants to ask a question live, you can raise your hand and do that as well. So I am happy to give kind of a high-level report on what's going on with the office and the staff. Many of you know that last summer was a period of great transition for the staff at NCPH. Stasia Tanzer, who had been our membership coordinator, moved on and is now back directly in the museum field, working at Napier Settlement outside of Chicago. And Sarah Singh, who was our publications and marketing coordinator, contract position that we created just a few years ago, moved on to focus on her MFA and her art practice. So I'm excited. Most of you know that we welcomed Jess Ballone as our new membership coordinator last fall. Jess is also the person behind the NCPH admin running this Zoom right now. So thank you, Jess, for being here. Jess runs our membership program as well as the awards program and provides support for a lot of our virtual programming. And she is a graduate of the IU Indianapolis Public History program here where we're housed. And then we also welcomed Maddie Helmick as our new publications and marketing coordinator. So Maddie oversees the History at Work blog, NCPH social media channels, and also the quarterly newsletter, Public History News. So we are very excited to have them joining the team of Megan and myself, and our graduate intern, Monica Berg from the IU Indianapolis program, who's been an absolute joy to work with, and we're going to be very sad to lose her at the end of the month. But anyone who's going to the MiniCon in DC, you'll be able to see Monica there. Sharon touched on this a little bit as well as Denise, but a membership update. Numbers are down, not unexpectedly. Of course, this is partially due to the financial situation that so many public historians are finding themselves in. But part of it is also because of the change in annual meeting dates. We didn't have registration opening when it usually does. And so a lot of folks who are used to renewing their membership when they register for the conference have had that sort of pushed back a little bit. So we're hoping to see that number tick back up a little bit when registration for the joint conference opens. And we also, at this time last year, we're so excited to launch the Membership Support Fund, which is an initiative that was started by members of our Council of Past Presidents to raise money from each other as a cohort to make sure that any public historians who are suffering financially because of the circumstances of the world right now, whether it is a reduced or eliminated job, struggling to get contract work, that they can maintain their membership with NCPH and their connection to our community here. And I'm pleased to report that we still have funds available if anyone needs them, and we review those on a rolling basis. And I just want to thank our Council of Past Presidents for the idea and then for seeing it through to execution, because it's been a really great way to make sure that we're not losing folks in our community. I also want to thank our patron and partner members and our sustaining level members, because your additional support also allows us to maintain the subsidized membership levels that we have to support students, new professionals in the field, folks who are unemployed or underemployed, and then folks who are adjacent to the field of public history but really want that access and connection. Those extra membership dollars that our sustaining and patron and partner level members provide is really a kind of game changer to make sure that we're staying as accessible as we can. Conference preparations are underway twofold. So we are planning for the joint 2026 conference with the American Association for State and Local History in September in Providence. Registration is set to open May 11th. I just saw the program cover for the first time, and it's very exciting. This will be our first time meeting jointly for AASLH. I think it'll be a wonderful way to bring our complementary membership, memberships and communities together. So we're looking forward to that. And then the call for proposals for the 2027 conference next spring in St. Louis is also open, and we are excited. The theme will be holding the line. And I know our local arrangements committee is working on some really wonderful tours for that conference. The proposals will be due a month earlier than usual, so that Megan can manage program selections for one conference while also getting ready to host another one. It's a fun logistical challenge. And then we still have the topic proposal option for folks who want to get sort of perspective as they're thinking about what conversations they want to gather to have in St. Louis. In terms of virtual programming, we've been very, very busy. Since we gathered last spring, we have hosted 30 virtual events serving over 2,500 public historians. The biggest of these was the series that we did earlier this year on AI and public humanities. That was a partnership with the American Conservation Experience. That series had nearly 500 registrants. But you see here on the screen just a sampling of the other kinds of events we have had or will be having in the coming months. In the late fall of last year, we also introduced a new pay what you can model for a lot of our virtual programming that is not just sort of networking or community building based. This has been really important in allowing us to cover the staffing costs for virtual events while also keeping them accessible to everyone in our community. And so I'm grateful to everyone who is able to opt in and, pay a little bit towards the cost of being able to provide these programs. NPS projects, Sharon mentioned this a little bit. We last year paid out $670,000 to our members to do work on 17 different projects with the National Park Service. And we brought in about $160,000 for NCPH in project management fees and indirect income. We also launched a form to gather a pool of members that are available for paid contract work to support these projects. So folks that might not have capacity to be a principal investigator or a lead historian writing and researching an entire project, but who might be interested in editorial work, peer review, Section 508 compliance. And so as long as we have these funds and these projects from the Park Service, we're going to do our best to get that money back out to our community. So we currently have a roster of 17 projects. We have 6 that are about to wrap up in 2026, and we have 10 pending applications for new projects. And we are going to learn a lot over the next couple of months as those 10 projects go through Department of Interior level review, which is new for these kinds of task agreements with the Park Service. So, for the 2026 budget year, we were looking really conservatively at what the income for this partnership with the National Park Service would be. And I'm hoping that things might be better performing than what we were thinking when we wrote the budget last year, but we will learn more. And Jess has put links into the chat. Thank you for doing that, so that you can learn about the projects that we have going now. And if you're interested in joining the pool of potential contract workers, that's there as well. 2 other quick plugs and mentions before we move into questions. It is committee appointment season here at NCPH. So if you are interested in joining an NCPH committee, almost all of our committees will have a couple of openings for new folks to join and get involved. And so there's a simple form that Jess has linked in the chat where you can share a little bit about what about yourself and your experience and what kind of committee work you might be interested in doing. And then you'll be hearing from our soon-to-be Vice President Priya Chaya with formal asks over the course of the next couple of months. And I know there are a number of our committee members and committee chairs here on the Zoom today, and we are so grateful for the work that you do to make sure that we stay relevant to public historians, that we are accountable to our community, and that we're able to accomplish some really good work together. And one of our committees that's been very active this year is our membership committee. And you should have all received an email earlier today with a link to a membership survey. The committee worked hard with the staff and with all of NCPH's committee chairs to come up with a pretty short and simple survey that will help us gauge where you need support and benefits from your membership the most, and how current circumstances might be impacting your work and your ability to stay a member of the organization. So please be sure to respond to that. And thank you, Jess, for putting the link in the chat. That is a lot of talking. So I'm happy to take questions. Any of us are happy to take questions. You can pop them in the chat. You can raise your hand on Zoom if you would like to ask it live. Yeah. Anything folks want to know more about from the organization? Or maybe we did it all. We answered all the questions. All right. Anything, Denise, Sarah, Sharon, anything you want to add? Well, I think we do need a round of Zoom celebrations for Denise. You know, she's off the hook when we close this Zoom, but she's not out of the board totally yet. So thank you, Denise, for all of your work and leadership over these last couple of years. And Nicole, welcome. We're so excited. Right. Well, you can always reach out by email if you have other questions. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day. All right.